All right. Welcome. This is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. I'm Val Meyer. This is my husband, Ed. And the show is A Shift in Time. Well, just like last week, we have another amazing show for you. And we have decided that for the most part, we're going to do most of the shows together because we can play off of each other and share our ideas with you. That said, I would like to introduce today's show. And it is a show about history repeating itself. I know that I said in my very first show that I had never lived through a time like this where we had to be stuck in our homes, where we had to social distance.
6 feet from each other.
Yes, or going into the food stores and shelves being emptied. That is such a new experience for all of us. So somebody sent me an email with some interesting historical facts. And we're going to share some of those with you tonight. And I think you'll be surprised, and we're hoping you're inspired by it. So Ed is controlling everything that you see from his seat. He has a little secret table that you cannot see beside him, and he will go over and just click on a button and certain things will appear and disappear. So, honestly, folks, we totally enjoy doing this. So we hope that this new format, we're trying to figure out what really works. And so far for us, since we've started doing these shows, it works best if we do it together. Okay.
And do keep those suggestions coming. We read every one of them. We don't always talk about them, but we totally appreciate your feedback, and we're incorporating them into the show, as you can see.
Exactly. Okay. I would like to read you a poem that was written in 1869. However, it was reprinted in 1919 during the Spanish flu pandemic. Okay? So go ahead and put it on, hon. Okay. So, history repeats itself. The poem starts, and people stayed at home and read books and listened, and they rested and did exercises and made art and play and learnt new ways of being and stopped and listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some met their shadow, and people began to think differently, and people healed. And in the absence of people who lived in ignorant ways, dangerous, meaningless, and heartless, the earth also began to heal. And when the danger ended and people found themselves, they grieved for the dead and made new choices and created new ways of living and completely healed the earth just as they were healed. Now, I don't know if you can read the poem up behind us. However, if you can't, send me an email. We will make sure that you get a copy of it. But what I am hopeful that you can see are the two women in the picture, and the picture is from 1869. And these women have masks on. They don't exactly look like the masks we use today, but you can absolutely tell that they are covering their mouths. The other pictures that came in the email that was sent me, one was a group of people standing beside each other, all wearing masks, and one woman had a sign across her chest that said, "Wear a mask or go to jail." We have heard that in the news recently, not here in Canada, but in the US. So people have said, people in authority have said, so governors of states and so on, have tried to push to force people to wear masks. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I wear one every time I go out. However, it was the same ideas were implemented that many years ago. We are repeating history. Do you realize that every 100 years has been a plague, a pandemic, some kind of health crisis? So the earth and mankind has been here before. But the poem, the why I wanted to read it and why it's going to be our focus topic tonight, the poem is all about what happens when the whole world, because this isn't just happening to me and you, this is around the world. And the only people who are not finding this a hardship are people in third world countries that are so poor and have lived in devastation their whole life. This is what they have known most of their lives, is they can't afford the basics. They can't afford to travel. They can't afford to feel free. They have meager existence every day of their lives. We still have food. We still have the internet. We still have electricity. We still have heat. They don't even have those things. But for most of the world, and a lot of third world people in third world countries that have those conveniences, we still have them during this time. Our hospitals were taxed, and in some places are still taxed on how many people are coming in and how many beds they have or how many nurses and doctors they have on staff. However, what I really want to focus on is people are having time to not run from one commitment to another, to the kids, to paying bills, to worried about bills, to getting the grass cut, to getting this done and that done, just plain life. So, Ed and I, when I got this email this morning, I went downstairs and talked to Ed in his office and said, this is exactly what we are doing. We are spending more time together, more leisure time, watching movies, reading. I bought a book today, a soft cover novel that I will spend probably the next 2 days reading.
Now you have to understand, Val loves reading.
But I never get there.
Recently, within the last, oh my gosh, if not months, better part of a year, very, very seldom have I seen her have the opportunity to do reading because She is always doing something. She is very busy. This has worked in our favor. It's given more time, and it's going to do something else. I think it's going to have the same effect for many, many people. You will get an opportunity without all the background noise to think about what's important, to prioritize what you want to do, to put family first if you have family, or your relatives, or your father and mother, or some other relationship. Because when you look at it, yes, it's nice to have all the equipment and the toys and so on. I mean, we're using some now to put this broadcast to you, this recording. But let's think about what's really important. Many years ago, I was helping some companies to get their feet back on the ground. And a very wise mentor said to me, and he is so well known in Vancouver, he's passed on now. He said, what's the biggest, most important part of a company? I knew his answer. People. You, me, us, others. People. Because if you take the people out of anything, what do you have left? A shell. So now is a perfect time, absolutely perfect time, to make sure that you've got things that you need to do, first of all, your necessities, and then what are you going to plan to do? Are you going to reduce some of the background noise that you didn't need in the first place? Are you going to help people? You have to think about these things because the new normal is coming. It won't be what we have now. It will be evolving from now. And it's much better to ride the horse in the direction it's going, right? So those are kind of my thoughts off the cuff right now.
Okay, so, and I agree totally with that. So we have spent days and weeks now talking and evolving our own ideas of what we want our new normal to look like. Our new normal involves moving, and we will move. Our new normal involves downsizing. We do not need a 3,000 square foot home with 4 bedrooms, a bonus room, an office for Ed, and a family room and a living room and a dining room and a kitchen. We just...
A bunch of bathrooms.
3 we don't need that. Our nephew, who is deaf, who lives with us, is getting married, and as soon as he's gone, there is no need for everything that we have. And you know what? I'm at an age where I don't want to be cleaning everything. I'm a clean freak. So if we have it, I'm cleaning it. And I'm keeping it all up. I don't want to spend all my time doing that. I've done that for years. This is not the biggest house we've ever had. And it's not the smallest house we've ever had. So I've always been cleaning large places on my own for the most part, except for when we had those 49 children come through our home over a 6-year period. Then I did have a little bit of help cleaning once a week. So, with this said, this is an exciting time. If you are not sick with the virus, then your life, except for not being able to go out and socialize, is virtually the same. You wake up every day, you feel pretty good, hopefully, or whatever condition you might be dealing with. You were dealing with it in the past, so you know what to do to work through it or to keep going. I have some health issues, and honestly, I don't have the virus, and I've coped with my health issues for over 2 years now, and I've got them under control, and I'm going on living life. Now's the time for you to plan. I talked about this shift happening long before the border was shut down from the States and we were all told to social distance and not go to work. Just shut everything down for the sake of saving lives. I could feel it coming before that, and I had talked to Ed and said, sweetie, now's our time. We need to make changes this year. And I promote that we move. Bryce is getting married, we think, in July. We hope it's still July.
Another Christmas.
We don't know. We don't know exactly. So I'm thinking if he's getting married in July, then we should be able to move by September. Sometime in September. And he said, okay, where do you want to move? Well, that started me. I was on the internet hours and hours and hours a week. We could live virtually anywhere. We could live any province in Canada. We could become snowbirds and spend 6 months of the year in a totally different country. Our choices are not limited. They are somewhat.
I mean, reality, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we have certain finances in place, and so I know what they are, and truly, we have a lot of choices.
But that's the whole point, isn't it? Now we are seeing these choices, whereas before, rather than being human beings, we were human doings. Yeah. We were chasing this, to follow that, to pay this, to bring that in, to do. We were human doings, and recently we have enjoyed more movies because we actually sit down and watch them, but we also are thinking about where is this going to go, and in which part of that do we want to go. I want to put forward yet again what Val alluded to. This is a time to embrace the excitement of the opportunities and choices that will soon be coming. And if you are prepared and you have your thinking in that line, then those will be directions that will give you options and choices, which it will feel very freeing. So, that's kind of another point of view.
It is. Now, our show last week was on ways to make money while you're still at home. Many people are considering, city people are considering moving to the country, doing a simpler lifestyle, or moving up north where it is more isolated because you know what? They enjoyed the time. And that brings me to a news report that I want to share with you. So it was, where was it? Where the governor was going to open up the state so people could slowly go back to work. And the entire state.
Was it Florida?
Florida.
I think it was Florida.
I'm sure it was Florida that Ed told me.
A grain of salt, but I think it was Florida.
And the people said they're not ready to come out of social distancing. Not because they're afraid they're going to get sick. Has nothing to do with that. These people, there are a lot of Spanish people, Hispanic people that live in Florida. They are huge family people. However, they have very strong work ethics, a lot of them, and so both the husband and wife work. The kids are overachievers. The family wants to honor their parents for the sacrifice that they made from leaving their homeland to starting a whole new life in another country. So they push their children push themselves. However, this time has happened that everybody had to stop. and they've decided to go back to their old values, that family counts way more than the new toy that we need in our driveway. Many, many people are reevaluating everything. And country people are saying, we're going to live in the city. There are changes happening throughout the world like this. You may not have realized all the choices that you do have. If you are not happy in the job that you are in, then set yourself up to either get a different job, maybe one that doesn't pay as much but that you're happier at, or set yourself up for a goal to attain the education you need so that you work for yourself, or you work with a smaller group where you have more say, or, there's so many options.
One of the options that is showing up in the last very few weeks, 3-4 weeks, more and more people are contacting Val regarding the courses and classes that she's putting on. This is just something I thought of at the moment, which tells me that people are looking at their options. They really are, because you have options, whether you knew them or not. They might be small options, they might be big options, but I bet you have some options. And I have a saying that any step in the right direction is a step in the right direction. So pick a goal or multiple goals. Don't have to be trying to get to the moon, but something that would make you happy, would help to alleviate some of the crazy pressures that are in the world, and at the same time will help fulfill you, bring your family together, or your group together, or your partnership together, and go in that direction, or whichever direction eventually will get you to where you want to go. It's very simple. Small steps really make a difference.
It really does. So there was another news story that I'd like to share. The interviewer was asking people, so are you considering changing your job after this is over? And out of all of those that said yes, not everybody said yes, but out of all of those that said yes, and the reporter was saying, well, what job would you go to? The most popular job that was mentioned was they wanted to work in essential services, so that when there is a pandemic or there is a crisis, they still have work. So these are people that really like a hectic routine. At our age, we're not looking for
Not
that.
so much.
We don't want to be an essential service. Doing a talk show is as far as we want to go. And when we were younger, we were involved in so many things.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
However, now that we're older, I want to share with you some of our priorities. So, we live in a suburb of Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. I know 2 of our neighbors' names, and one of them passed away. I now know 1. There are not even 12 feet between our houses, so there's lots of people on this street. I have to take a car to go everywhere, whether it's to the closest grocery store to do shopping, or run to the bank, or whatever. I have to get in a car every time. I have no sense of community. I grew up in a small town named Chambly, in Quebec. I grew up in French Canada. My dad was French Canadian and my mom was English Canadian. We were raised English. However, we all parlaient français un petit peu because we all speak French because our friends were French. Now, do I speak French totally? No. It's been years. However, I can still travel to Montreal, order a meal in French or an ice cream cone, whichever one I'm seeking.
Ice cream cones are good, yes.
Yeah, ice cream cones work. But where we live, I personally have no sense of community. I grew up with a sense of community. I grew up going ice skating with all the kids that lived within the school catchment area every Friday night. And the skating rink was outside. And they piped out music to us and lights came on and everything. It was something that the community paid for. And all us kids were there. From the time we were 12 to our parents even showed up. The little kids didn't, because with the big kids on the rink, we would do the whip and everything else. And, you know, one of them would end up hurt if there were little kids on the rink. So it was in the evening. And then every Saturday night, there was a school dance. And my sisters and I attended every one of those. And we knew people. We knew the people that lived on our street. And I had lots of brothers and sisters. There were 6 of us in the family. So I'm not used to this. I yearn for a smaller town that has the time and the bandwidth to want a community. So we're looking to move to a place where the town hall has a dance once a month, where there's a country fair and I can enter some of my baking goods, and let's see if I can win.
Well, you entered one and you won first and second prize.
I did.
How do you do that?
I didn't know that you could put in 2 entries. Or you couldn't put in 2 entries, and I did, and I won against 300 women. I won first and second prize.
Lucky me.
In a baking contest. So those are things, I didn't do that here. I did that a whole lifetime ago. When you live in a city, I think it's just part of trying not to burn out. You're around people all the time, and your lifestyle is far more demanding. Your time clock is everybody else is looking at their clock, and you need to be there. So in the city, the sense of community is just very hard to find.
Now, don't misunderstand. The neighbors are great neighbors, and one of the neighbors the other day had a real problem in their front yard, and everybody was there to try and help out, but it took some massive equipment to actually fix the problem. But nobody spends the time to really get to know each other, mostly because these days people don't have the time. Well, they do now.
Yes, and now they're not allowed to.
I mean, we've got a couple of people across the street. They are excellent at construction, and they're gone bright and early in the morning before it gets light, and they're home late after it gets dark. And the gentleman's wife does all kinds of things for her kids, not right today, not these days, but there's the same story over and over and over again.
Absolutely. I feel we're part of the problem too. We were so busy. I ran a 5-room clinic for years. Ed does research and development at companies that are not even in this town that we live in. And there are days where it can take him an hour and a half to get to work. in each direction, home and back. So,
I mean, it's nice that some of the work that I've done has, well, a lot of it has gone around the world, various seagoing and Navy applications, commercial applications, some of them to do with local here out at Delta Port, all over the world. But over the years, it's kind of like the frog in the water story. You know, you put the frog on a nice styrofoam or something that it's insulated in a vat, which has got water. The frog is in the water, and you slowly bring the temperature up. The frog will expire while sitting there.
It never jumps out.
Because it's so slow, never notice the difference. But if you bring the temperature up quick, that frog is leaping out. So what's happened over all the decades is everybody scrambles more and more to do more and more, faster and faster, having less time for their families, their children, their relatives, their partners, the neighbors. And this time is a wonderful time to refocus.
That's right. Now, you can change anything you want to. And we are absolutely making changes. I'm the one who does the research and brings it to Ed and says, well, what about this place? What about this place? What about this place? And I name some of the things that the place has. But I'm telling you right now, it's not another big town or city. That is so not what we are looking for. I want a greenhouse in our backyard with grow tables where everything is at the height that I can walk in and work on the garden, and we can keep most of the weeds out because it's enclosed and the wind hasn't blown something in.
And we're looking at hydroponics. No dirt, rocks, nutrients, water, sunlight.
Yeah.
Hydroponics, why not?
Exactly. And so we want to pursue those things. One thing we have as our advantage is we're older. We've already done the running around. We've already built businesses, done things that we'd like to do, bring products to market, whatever. We've had that opportunity. We've done it. Some have turned out, some haven't. However, we're not there anymore. And there are lots of young families that are going to say the same thing. We don't want our kids growing up this way. We don't want it to be this way anymore. It's cheaper to live if you're not in the city. It's incredibly expensive to live in the Vancouver area and surrounding area. It is incredibly expensive. And I no longer want to put the money out to stay in this rat race. Ed was raised in Vancouver. His family immigrated from Shanghai.
By way of the Philippines.
But you were how old? 5, 7?
5. When I arrived here, I was just over 5 years old.
Okay. So he had born in Shanghai. His dad was part of the diplomatic
Embassy
in
Manila.
And then from there, after the war, they moved to Canada. And they landed in Vancouver, and that's where they lived their whole entire life.
Now, I want to tell you a little bit of what it was like when we moved to Vancouver back in those days. All the neighbors knew each other for about 3/4 of a block in every direction. We would know everybody. The kids would play with everybody. And, if you wanted a community, you had a local community, and then there were things to do. And we were fairly close to a street called Commercial Drive. And there was lots and lots of like German bakeries, Italian delicatessens, Japanese stores. It was cosmopolitan. And you really had a feeling of belonging to a community. But things change. And things pick up speed. People carry more debt. They run faster on the treadmill. You know the rest of the story. And to keep doing that means that, well, what slowly happens is you don't have as much time for all these neighbors. Just walk on the sidewalk, and you can't even go 3 or 4 houses because it's taken you 20 minutes. Everyone wants to talk. And in those days, it was okay. Nowadays, you've got a tight time schedule. You know, everything's down to the second. It's quite interesting to look back over that many decades and see the very slow evolution of the rat race. It was punctuated by ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. We're all aware of that. But if you look at the average, it's been ever so slowly increasing, but recently it's become more noticeable. And now with this particular time, when we have this slowdown in everything, you can really see it because the contrast of what's happening now compared to what was happening just before is really noticeable. And most people in the first 2 to 3 weeks did not know what to do with themselves. They really didn't. So it's interesting because I would go out to one of the major streets out here, and lo and behold, maybe 10 to 25% of the traffic.
I know. It was unbelievable.
And, where it used to take me an hour to an hour and a half to get to, I was there with the rest of the traffic in about 30 minutes. It was amazing. So in one respect, there's a silver lining to that cloud. It's much easier to travel. But I've noticed something in the last few days, the last week. More traffic.
Yes.
More people are getting used to it. They are going out. Fewer people are wearing masks. We are not compelled to here, but fewer people are. More people are smiling.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, more people are smiling. They're not so uptight that they have to go in and watch out for a cloud of viruses that are going to get you. So people are acclimatizing. My question is going to be what happens when they really fully acclimatize and cut back on what they don't need and bring forward more of what they do need and want. That'll be very interesting.
I completely agree. And so that's what this show is about today. History is repeating itself. This has happened every 100 years. A major catastrophe, a major event, and it doesn't have to be a world war. But that's all I knew before this. I was
surprised to see that article, and they quote what it was, like the Spanish flu, and then when was that? Roughly in the 1920s, 1910, in that area. What was it?
1919, actually.
Okay, so let's fast forward to 20. What was it? 2020, right? Yeah. More like 2019. Okay, so that's 100 years. And then 100 years before that.
People haven't really changed, okay? You and I and our ancestors that lived 100 years ago during the Spanish flu, and then 100 years before that with the cholera epidemic, and 100 years beyond that, they all reevaluated their lives. Every major event makes you, as a planet, as a country, as a people, and as a family, reevaluate what's important. We heard from friends of ours that he's thinking of retiring around February next year. And what they will do is they're going up north quite a ways up north. Obviously, the cold does not get to them, but it's so much cheaper to live. And their pensions, the amount they have to live on, would go way further there for them to live a life that they could really enjoy. They are used to living in Canada. They're used to the cold and everything else. However, where they're going, it's going to be longer and possibly even colder, the winter season. But they're okay with that. We're not. We're not winter people like we used to be when we were younger. Ed would go skiing. I taught the kids how to ski. I mean,
and I've forgotten how to make igloos anyway. So
exactly. And so, but cold is just doesn't really intrigue us. So we're thinking south. We're not thinking north for where we would like to find ourselves.
But that's our dreams that we're actually starting to formalize, plan for. What are yours? What are yours? If you could do it, and you can, what are your dreams?
And what is really important? Take this time to think about it. Don't be afraid. I know it is upsetting that every single time you turn on the TV or the radio or you get something in your email box, 90% of the time it's about covert virus, even if it's from your bank saying what they're going to do for you during this time. So it is upsetting, and in the beginning it was really upsetting because this came out of the blue, in my opinion. When Trump closed the border, I was like, what's going on? Because I hadn't heard that it was such a big deal. Now, I also need to admit, we're not big watching the news all day people either. We're busy and we're doing things, and I mean, we kind of know what's going on, but I really wasn't prepared for it.
I used to know people, and through my father, we knew people in the two major news networks in Vancouver. And we got to see a lot of what goes on behind the scene. A lot of it is controlled chaos because they're running most of the time to get some deadline, and that's just the way the business is. And it's amazing to me that they can have it so accurate and so repeatable. They've got some amazing people. But what we noticed was it's a well-known fact that if you want to sell something, you attach it to an emotion. The strongest emotions are associated with anxieties and fears, or you're not good enough, or things like that. Now, this is mostly Val's domain, but I could see what was going on. And so when you look at the advertising, if you've got what's good enough, why would you want to go and get 2 or 3 or 4 other products that aren't something that you like? Now, that's not to say that if you like techie stuff, you may not want to get the latest thing because it helps you do something better or you enjoy the game better. I'm not talking about that, because that's about you enjoying this period of time. And a lot of people are using their games, their computers, their home studios, things like that. But look what it's doing. It's helping them center and move forward. And what I was alluding to back a moment ago, when I realized, and Val realized, just how much of the news was actually coming out negative. We didn't need to watch and take that in.
And repetitive. Like you were bombarded with it 24/7 if you'd stay on that station. And so that's never been something that we've gravitated towards. we have a really, really busy lifestyle. So we absolutely focused on that, and we enjoyed it. However, our children are born and raised. Our grandbabies are born and being raised. Nobody's planning on having any more children, adding to the family. So I don't feel that I'm needed to be around to help with that. And Ed will always work. He loves what he does. He will continue to do what he does. But because it's high tech, he can do it from home. He can do it from satellite. He doesn't have to be at a particular office anymore. And if he does, and we're not close by, he'll fly in, stay with our kids.
Yeah, if a system is being commissioned in, somewhere like New Zealand or Australia or close by, then during those integration phases, you have to be there. There's really no choice. It's the reality. But other than that, two things really help. High tech and the internet and a delivery service.
Exactly. Not only that, I want you to think about the people in your lives that you want to include. Your children are living their lives if they're adults and grown up. They're living their lives. They don't choose where they live because you live there. If they do, that's very rare. Very rare. We have family in Alberta, we have family here, we have family in the Okanagan.
United States.
United States. We have family everywhere. That being said, my sister, my oldest sister, is a widow. And she and I are super close, and she and Ed get along really, really well. We will include her as much as she wants to be included in our new life choice. We will make sure that there is a bedroom with her name on the door. That if she would like to stay for a certain period of time, or come and move in, or share, or whatever, we're open to all possibilities. Now, you may say, well, why not just you and Ed? Ed has the things that he does that take time, and they don't always involve me. Leslie and I get along amazingly, and we have common things that we like very much and stuff. She bakes, I cook.
Lucky me.
Yeah, exactly, and stuff. She's totally independent. I am, and Ed is independent. So it could be Leslie and I leaving to take a trip. It could be Ed off on a business trip and Leslie and I there. It could be Ed and I taking off in the fifth wheel on a trip, and Leslie's there to take care of the garden and whatever else needs to be taken care of. I mean, truly, for us, we believe that there's a possibility, so we're talking about it, we're thinking about it. Be inclusive if that's something that works for you and the other person. If it isn't, if it's something that just you and your husband or you and your partner or you and your wife want to do on your own, or you just want to do it on your own, you're tired of being with people that say, oh no, you have to do this or you have to do that, then make that change. Life is short. It doesn't seem like it sometimes, especially if you're not well. It doesn't seem like it's short. It seems like it just drags on. So if you're not well, do your very best to get yourself to the best position you can get yourself in, so that you can make choices and enjoy life. And it isn't about having everything. It's having what you need and a few of your wants, and you'll be surprised how wonderful life can be. We're looking for a community, and not that we want people at our house all the time, but I would love to be able to walk down the street and know the people's name and stop and sit on the porch and have a nice tea. I would love to do that. So I'm already thinking hot place.
We took a trip to Tennessee.
Yes.
And we went into a place called the Cracker Barrel. Outside of the Cracker Barrel are rockers.
Rocking chairs.
Yep. And they have great dumplings, by the way. So when we were finished inside, you could be inside or outside, and these rocking chairs that were there were not meant for elderly. There were young people in them. There were elderly people and everybody in between.
Yep.
They were playing checkers with each other, or they were reading a book. The pace was slower, kind of like what it is right now. And we came back from that trip quite rejuvenated, believe it or not, because of the nice slow pace and the lack of the rat race. It was quite enjoyable, wasn't it?
It was really nice. Now, when you're on vacation, things are slower. When you're retired, hopefully things are slower, because that's what we're looking at. Is we're purposely focusing on a slower pace. The things that we still have a passion to do, we will do. These shows, Ed will still work on research and development. We're hoping to have a workshop out in the backyard. I'd like to have it half workshop and half his office, so that if Leslie and I have got the music going and we're baking and dancing and cooking and everything else in the winter and decorating for Christmas or whatever's coming up, that Ed's got his space that he feels we're not invading.
And they're not going to trip over the oscilloscope probes or whatever, right?
Yeah, all of his technical stuff. So we're hoping that you, if you haven't already started down the path we're talking about, that you do. If you are in a high-stress job, you do not have to stay there. You are not letting anybody down except yourself. If you don't know what you want, and I'm thinking of someone in particular, but I am sure there are lots of people out there like that. If you really don't know what you want, one of the first things I would do if I were you, as soon as this social distancing thing is over, I would sit down with a professional and find out my options. I am capable of doing this, 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 and this. This is what I'm looking for in my life. Help me make that shift. What do I need to do? Do I take a lesser paying job? Truly, some people would be more happy working at Tim Hortons or Carl's Jr. or whatever than corporate.
Well, we know someone who just recently, tremendously successful corporate career, amazing person, absolutely amazing person. For whatever reason, they explained it to us, but that's their business. They decided to do something that they have been wanting to do for quite a while. And they thanked their boss for the opportunity, gave their notice, fly be free. They are now doing the thing they wanted to do. very happy camper.
There's another couple that we know that sold their apartment in Vancouver, which is pricey. Vancouver apartments are very pricey. They have moved out to cabin country, that's what we call it, where there's a huge lake and cabins that truly are not just meant for summer. And they've got a little place, and I don't mean big, and they couldn't be happier. They are completely out of the rat race, and they have downsized their life to fit the reality of their budget. Your kids, if you're a family and one of the adults in the room is watching this show, and you're thinking, yeah, but my kids, all their friends are here and stuff. Well, that is something to consider. However, are your kids being influenced the way that you want them to be? Will they really hate the idea of moving? Of making a lifestyle change? I think it's all the way that you present it. You need to do your homework. You need to know what you're planning on moving to. Make sure your partner's on board. And then present to the kids the opportunities that they will have with this move. The opportunity of having more time together. The opportunity of living here where you can do this or you can do that. Find out your options. It is a bit more challenging with a family. Your financial commitments are bigger. You've got to feed and clothe them. And however, most places have schools, and school buses come and pick them up, and they're still going to get an education. Many of the kids don't want to go back to school, and it's not a behavioral thing. Are they kidding? Some of them, for the first time in their lives since they were one, both, if not one, both parents are stuck at home now. And you know what? They might not appear to have really liked it in the beginning. However, it should be working out really well by this 4th week that we're into, where they feel that you've got time for them. This is a shift in time for all of us. And this is a time to dream and make your dreams come true if that's what you want. You do not have to stay stuck in one place. You do not have to kowtow to people at work that don't make you feel that you have any value. If you love your job and everything's going great, then this shift will be you going back and making things as they were before. But if that's not your cup of tea, this is the perfect time to plan it.
Use this time. Use this time for you. There's not so much background noise, and there is more opportunity to consult in your family or with your partner. There's more opportunity to focus your resources that you have and figure out what is important and what is not important. And as Stephen Covey said, do first things first and second things not at all. And I don't know if we can all do that, but it's a good goal. It's a good guideline, because some things that are first, we forget about them. We forget about them.
We push them aside, especially if it's ourselves.
And then, people who are close to us, or the people we haven't talked to in a long time, and then we find out they're not well, or when did that happen? Oh, last year. Has it been that long? So just more doing of thinking and planning to become more human beings and less human doings. If you're going to be doing, how about doing for yourself and your family?
Are we almost out of time?
Oh yeah, we're already a minute over.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. We hope it inspires you. We want you to be happy. And if you weren't before this started, if you weren't really happy with everything that was happening in your life, this is the perfect time to evaluate and make changes. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same station, and I'm sure, will have another idea.
We can't seem to stop them.
Exactly. So thanks again for joining us. If you have any ideas that we can share, please write to us at our email.
Yeah, right to the email. There we go.
Know that you matter to us.
Yes.
Have a great week.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.